friends. We're starting in a couple of minutes, so if you'd like to find your seat again, that'd be greatly appreciated. Ready to start at 7:30. The lights have suddenly gone down. I don't know why that's happened, but I wonder if you could give your attention to the moderator, please.
Welcome back, Synod, and I hope you've had a refreshing dinner and enjoyed the conversations that you've had as we continue to build community in this space. I would like you to, if you haven't had the opportunity to meet everyone at your table, to do so in these next few minutes as we move into our next session. And maybe perhaps something you could share is if there was anything good that's happened in the Synod for you so far, or there may not be, but please just share amongst yourselves, and if there are some that haven't met others, this would be an opportunity to share with one another as we get ready to move into our next session. Can I have your attention? Wonderful buzz going on at your tables. I hope it was good. We now move into a session where I'll invite discussions which will be led by Mark Zernzak, who's the Senior Social Justice Advocate. With also, I welcome Peter and Rima, who are here with us, speakers from Palestine and Israel. Rima Barakat, apologies if my pronunciation is not that great, and Rima Barakat and Peter Jones Belak, respectively, who will share about peace processes between Muslims and Jews. As these matters are prevalent globally and locally, it is hoped that this presentation will make a contribution to reducing racism in the community, including anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, and resource Synod members in their personal and shared reflections on these matters. So I hand it over to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you. Moderator and members of Synod, just to put this in context, so from the Justice International Mission Cluster's point of view, we have faithfully followed the resolutions of the Uniting Church, that the Uniting Church is focused on being a peace-building church, and in the current conflict and tragedy that has unfolded, we have taken the view that it is absolutely essential for us to be supporting the peace builders on the ground, who are often very courageous people taking huge risks, sometimes risking their physical safety. They can face imprisonment. And tonight you will hear from a Palestinian and a Jewish-Israeli peace builder. They represent, you have met one of each. They do not speak on behalf of all the peace builders. There's a great diversity. One of the things that has been very disturbing about the current situation is othering, where othering being a process where we dehumanise people, where we remove their individuality, we ignore complexity, and basically people are reduced to stereotypes. So they are villains or heroes, perpetrators, would-be perpetrators or victims. And in all cases, that is a dehumanising of those people. It takes away the sense of complexity. Just for those who want to read more about othering, I would highly recommend James Waller's Becoming Evil. James Waller is a social psychologist. But we will now, you don't need to hear more from me, doing a bit of an interview process tonight with Roman and Peter. So Roman, we'll ask you to start. Can you tell the members of Synod a bit about yourself, who you are, how did you end up making the decision to be someone working for peace as a Palestinian from East Jerusalem?
Thank you. So I grew up in East Jerusalem, and I witnessed the first Intifada. I was going to a school next to Damascus Gate, one of the gates of Jerusalem, which happened to also be one of the hottest clash points when it came to Israeli and Palestinian clashes back in the day during the first Intifada. And it was right after, it was right outside of my schoolyard that I would see Israelis and Palestinians fighting, that I would see dead people just outside of my schoolyard, where tear gas would be entering the school, my classroom. And so I will say that Jerusalem, growing up in Jerusalem as a city that was divided, there wasn't a physical boundary between East and West Jerusalem, but there was very much of a psychological boundary between the two sides. I didn't grow up knowing Israelis And really, I met Israelis mostly as soldiers, except through my grandfather, who had a shop in the Old City, and he did business with Israelis. And it was the only encounter that was more normal, that my grandfather, together with an Israeli, would sit down, have some tea. And I remembered that, it's very clear in my memory, and it is what allowed me to also see through and see beyond the suit that a soldier, Israeli soldier, was wearing, and search for that humanity inside. And I kept searching for that, and later on, I got involved in different peace initiatives. I got to study international relations and Middle Eastern studies, and went on a journey of discovering more about this other side that I didn't know anything about. Knowing also, getting to know that also the other side is afraid. I mean, not to be mistaken, I grew up in a household where we watched news that showed Israelis as enemies, and it was also the experience I had day to day on the ground. But it was that search beyond for that place of humanity that led me on this path, and once I did, I couldn't get enough of it. And so I was involved in all sorts of initiatives. Some are of track to diplomacy initiatives, and later on I got very disillusioned by being involved with politicians, being involved in very grand initiatives that had some of the most powerful people on both sides, whether it's business people, politicians, and that was really in 2014 when I felt that we hit a very big crisis. There was another war on Gaza. There was the kidnapping of 3 boys from Gush Etzion. There was like the burning of the kid Muhammad Abu Khder from Shafat, and I found myself just I was afraid walking in the streets of Jerusalem, but that was also the same for many Jewish Israeli friends that I knew. And it felt a lot more difficult to find partners on the other side. Only that I insisted. I had been working then in Ramallah, and that was like where and it became incredibly difficult for me to commute every day. And I said, now is the time that I'm gonna go back to Jerusalem and see what I can do in Jerusalem. And this is when I met a community of people, Jerusalemites, that were doing all sorts of things. And I kind of opened my eyes to that complexity that Jerusalem had in terms of its being the hottest, clash point in terms of the conflict, but at the same time had this diversity, this openness, and it is talking about. So it is like when my flat tire, when I get a flat tire as I'm driving in the west side of the city. It's like an Orthodox Jew that stops, doesn't look at me because that's against his religion, but still he's the one who has changed my tire. And that's what Jerusalem offers, that complexity, but also that openness and that humanity of being there, living the day to day. I'll just say that from that point, I sort of left the track to diplomacy, and I embraced, an organization that uses the arts and culture as a way to bring people together. And it was mostly my inspiration with what the arts could do in terms of stretching our minds and our imagination in imagining and creating a better future. And so I've been involved in this organization for 10 years, and it's that capacity of manifesting through the arts a different reality and modeling it and allowing the people, a big amount of people, to see that a different way of doing things is possible.
Thank you. Peter, would you mind also explaining to the members of Synod your background and how have you come to be part of peace initiatives?
Thanks, Mark, and thanks, Ruman. You'll pick up from my accent, I grew up here. I'm a Melbourneite by birth. 16 years ago, I decided to finally make my home in Israel. My husband was Israeli born. 3 out of 4 of our children were already living there. The 4th has joined us. So I grew up here. I grew up in an activist family, a left-wing family. From my very early age, I remember being part of anti-apartheid demonstrations, anti-Vietnam War demonstrations, with my parents' support and encouragement, and freeing Soviet Jewry as well. So that was part of my life. I grew up as an activist. When I was involved in education, I worked in Jewish education, I was invited by the Executive Council of Australian Jewry to become a consultant on a dialogue with the Uniting Church. The Uniting Church had put on the seats, this was many years ago, we're talking about 2000, the Uniting Church had put on the seats a flyer one Sunday that had overtones of anti-Semitism. And rather than take them to court with anti-vilification laws, the Jewish community said, let's start a dialogue with the Uniting Church. And I was part of that early dialogue team. And from that first dialogue, I grew and understood that as a person of the Jewish faith, I benefited from dialogue in so many ways. First of all, outreach, being able to say who I was as a small minority in this country, but also learning so much about the faith of Christianity. I'll cut very short because time is short, but I was a founding member of the Australian National Dialogue of Christians, Muslims and Jews, and I had the opportunity twice to represent Australia in interfaith dialogues, the first in Indonesia in 2004 and then in the Philippines in 2006. Your church's representative was Wendy Wilkie. I don't know how many of you know her, but we were colleagues, and I have many other colleagues in the Uniting Church, again through those days of dialogue. So when I went to live in Israel, I landed on my feet. I went without a job, and I immediately found work in the Elijah Interfaith Institute, which is an international interfaith institute. I won't go into details, but you might remember that Parliament of World Religions was held here in 2009. And a few weeks later, I was living in Israel, and I'd met my boss at the Parliament. So that's how things work. I turned, therefore, what had been my hobby, if you like, representing the community and dialogue, into my profession. As a result of my work with Elijah, I was invited to join what's known as a spiritual community. And as part of that spiritual community, one of the members was an Irish woman who was born Catholic, converted to Judaism, married an Israeli, and is now a practicing Buddhist. And she was part of this spiritual community. And one day she said to me, Peter, I'm going to be part of a group of women who are holding a hunger strike outside the Prime Minister's house. This was 2014. There'd been the war in Gaza, and the war had been 50 days, and a group of women said, we are going to fast. The 25 women each took 2 days, and it turned out to be the beginnings, the foundations of Women Wage Peace, the organization I now represent. And Sheila invited me to come and see. I walked into the tent and immediately saw their 2 pillars. The first one was peace activism. We are fighting for peace. The other one was UN Resolution 1325 with the involvement of women. And I said, that's it, this is my organisation. I signed up and have gradually become more and more active in Women Wage Peace. I do need to take this opportunity right at the beginning to say that one of the founders whom I met in the tent that day was Vivian Silver, may her memory be a blessing, who was murdered on October the 7th. She was an incredible woman, an inspiration to us all as an advocate for peace. And now, even though I started off, just the principles were there, but now I feel that everything we do is to continue Vivian's work, which she started. And if there's an opportunity, I can say more about that. But that was my journey into Women Wage Peace.
Can you outline for the Synod perhaps a little bit more about, more broadly, the peace movement within Israel? So I don't think, it's something that we probably don't get much of a sense of for most Australians.
Certainly you don't, because I've seen the Australian news, and I often in Israel listen to the ABC just to keep my head in, and you don't get a sense of it at all. I'm proud to say that Israel's still a democracy. And what that means is there's enormous diversity. And what it also means, and I think we've experienced it here in Australia many times, we might even be experiencing it now, means the elected government often very quickly into its term no longer represents the voice of the people. That's certainly the case in Israel at the moment. There are multiple peace movements in Israel, and there are movements that go back to the foundation of the state in 1948. There were peace movements then. Martin Buber famously had a movement that did not gain majority traction or even seats in the parliament, but that was the movement. The idea of peace movements goes back to the foundation of the state. Women Wage Peace came into the scene with a very specific direction. We demand a negotiated peace settlement with the Palestinian people. Negotiated. Palestinian people, Israeli leadership and Palestinian leadership. That is our particular niche in the peace movement. But there are organizations that use the arts. There are organizations that use environmentalism. There are those that demand the end to all war now. There are those that critique the army and its behavior. There's something called Mahsom Watch, which is watching at the checkpoints, just making sure that, or as much as possible, preventing humiliation of Palestinians as they pass through checkpoints. There's so many different organizations. The organizations I've mentioned so far are Israeli-led and consist of Israelis standing together as a comparatively new one, which is young people. But there are also Christian organizations from outside Israel that come from time to time and work with both Israelis and Palestinians. So the peace movement is incredibly strong. And at the last poll figures I heard, at this stage in the war, it was 63% of the Israeli population wants this war to end now. So it shows that it's not just those who belong to the peace movement. The concept of peace is deep within Israeli society. But with all that I've said, Mark, I want to be absolutely honest here and say, but there is also in Israel a militaristic and unpleasant group as well. And so even though we are not heroes as peace activists in Israel, as those who are peace activists in Palestine have to be, they are heroes. They are fighting and taking risks. We're not taking risks in that way, but we are sometimes marginalised and humiliated, and our current government certainly does everything it can to suppress both our activity and also our effectiveness in terms of access to media and so on. So it's not surprising that Australia doesn't know enough about what we do, but I'm now telling you, if you look at alternative media sources, it is possible to know.
And are we able to play the small clip of Women Wage Peace, just to give people a sense of the organisation Peter comes from? Is that cued, ready to go?
Or the English is small.
Their lives matter not because they are Palestinians or Israeli. Their life matter because they are our children.
We spent every second night in bomb shelters. Thousands died. But that is not where we are in Northern Ireland now. 6 months ago, we celebrated 25 years of the peace process known as the Good Friday Agreement.
We don't want to lose more children to this conflict.
אסור לשכוח שסכסוכים גדולים ומרים בעולם נפתרו, וזה יכול לקרות גם כאן.
نحن لا نريد غير حياة كريمة لأبنائنا سليمة وصحية نراهم يعيشون بلا خوف عليهم إن ضحكوا أو بكوا.
We hear that you say no to violence and conflict and yes to peace.
I am really proud to be a partner with you in this, in your peace building efforts.
البلد وهمها الوحيد المحافظة على أولادها. نحن هنا كلنا أمهات.
النور الذي ينبثق بفضل إصرار الأمهات الإسرائيليات والفلسطينيات من الجانبين.
קריאת האימהות שלנו, הזעקה המשותפת, חייבת להתחזק ולהתרחב.
That's why, as hard as it is, we must keep pursuing peace. We must keep pursuing a path so that Israel and the Palestinian people can both live safely, in security, in dignity, and in peace.
So, Rahman, moving back to yourself, can you perhaps tell the members of Synod about the involvement of Palestinians within peace movements in Israel, in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza?
I'll just say first that I've been involved in peace building for over 2 decades, and because Peter mentioned Vivian Silver, I want to say that I was in a retreat with her and a group of Israeli and Palestinian women. I believe it was 2016 when we planned the March of Hope. And we'll talk about this a bit later, but her loss was a loss for all of us. So as regards peace builders on the Palestinian side, both in East Jerusalem, West Bank, Gaza, and also Palestinian citizens of Israel, Peter talked about this a little bit, but really the range of organizations that are working for peace. First of all, there is more than 160 peace organizations in Israel and Palestine. A lot of them either have a parallel branch or are co-led by Israelis and Palestinians. So you've got Women Wage Peace. On the Palestinian side, you've got Women of the Sun. In the case of the organization that I represent, it's co-led by a Palestinian and an Israeli, and you see that model a lot. And even when it's almost impossible for people to meet physically, because of checkpoints and because of barriers, people still manage to collaborate from both sides. And so you've got organizations that are focused on advocacy, on trying to figure out what kind of political solution we want to have for Israel-Palestine, trying to come up with all kinds of creative models, other organizations that are human rights-based, others that are using the arts, using sports, using tech, using business in order to create connections between the two sides, environment, all sorts. So, and we see this as an ecosystem. And that each one of those organizations have a different role to play, a different piece of the puzzle to fill in. And sometimes, you know, for example, the organization I represent, Filbet, we'll get to that in more detail, but it's a low barrier entry point, for example. It's not meant for us to have all the difficult political discussions there, but our role is to let people in the door, as many people as we can for Israelis and Palestinians to meet. And our tool is the arts and culture.
I was going to say, so do you want to explain to people, Phil Bett, you're the co-CEO. I believe the name's a play on words, is that right?
Yes, so Feel Bet means feel at home. Feel is in English, and then in Arabic, Feel Bet means just at home. And our logo has both the Hebrew and the Arabic together. There's a graphic designer that we worked with that created a script that's called Aravrit, which combines both the Arabic and the Hebrew at the same time. We asked her help in creating our logo. Yeah.
I was just going to say, should we go to the clip and just see?
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, we can go to the clip.
Go to the clip and then we'll talk more about Phil Bett.
This clip was footage since October 7th and up till September 2024.
Good morning from Filbet. I'm Zare. These are times of uncertainty.
Where it feels that humanity has lost its compass.
المستقبل كتير مغبش مشاعر حزن ومشاعر خوف.
These are times of absolute chaos and opportunity.
What we need now is more compassion and understanding of each other.
نحتاج إنه كل بني آدم يطلع على أخوه كبني آدم.
מה שצריך זה עדינות. מה שצריך עכשיו זה מרחבים שמאפשרים לשהות ביחד.
מה שצריך עכשיו זה לדבוק בחיים.
To be active in the making of hope.
A change towards a better future where Israelis and Palestinians can live together in peace.
Seed-baked is a place where people can have those conversations, share those heartaches.
פילבט זה מקום שלא מתעלמים בו מהשוני ולא מתעלמים בו מהפחד.
بسيربات الفن هي لغة. عن طريق هاي اللغة نقدر نتواصل مع بعض كثير أكثر من كلمات. شوي شوي بالسنة اللي بترجع.
מקום שמאפשר לחוות ארז ארז מציאות אחרת.
هو مكان مثل قلب الأم يضم جميع أبنائه ويشعرهم بالراحة.
פילבט הוא מקום שבו לא מתעלמים מהזהות, מקבלים את כולם. כולנו אוהבים להיות פה.
هو مكان بيساعدنا نتعامل مع هاي الفترة ونتنفس.
فيلبت مقام شمسمية خارجي.
هو المحل اللي بسببه أنا لهلا ضايل في البلد وما قدرت أتحرك.
It's a place where the future is being built.
So can you, we've talked before, and I understand, Phil Bett, you do some fairly edgy things. Do you want to perhaps tell the members of Synod about some of your activities?
Yeah. So post October 7th, first, I'll say that it was the strength of our core team and the relationship that we've built and the trust we've built over the years, also with our audiences. It was difficult at first. We called upon each other, checked on each other, and then invited others to come in. First for a lunch every week, and we handpicked people. Like we thought, who are the people every week? Who are the people that no matter what will come to the table and have a meet and talk to each other? And we saw that week after week, people were coming. And this is when we decided that we'll go back to what we do and use the arts in order to heal, in order to bring people together, in order for people to be able, the artists to be able to express the grievances of their communities. I'll say that for the Palestinian community and for the Palestinian artists, many of them had felt silenced in that moment of time. In various Israeli institutions and so on, they didn't feel comfortable talking about their suffering and pain. Israeli artists, Palestinian artists came, performed next to each other on stage. Each one really expressed, through the arts, through the medium of the arts, some incredibly difficult things that if it weren't for the art, maybe it would have been difficult to listen, to open their hearts and ears. Recently, we've also had a 3-week, we didn't call it a festival, we called it Shift, but we were open 3 weeks for 6 days a week. And we had artworks and that were born out of collaborative efforts and partnerships. Everything in those 3 weeks was co-created. So by the first year, we just let everybody, like the Israelis and Palestinians, sort of bring their own art and not having to do things together. But then we realized, we have this pool of artists that have gotten to know each other now, and that perhaps they can do something. And this is exactly what happened. And in this case, it's really the power of the arts to humanize, to talk about what's difficult. It's not, and also people bringing in themselves and their identity in a non-defensive way. That there's nothing there that they need to defend. It's their story, it's their human story. And I'll say for myself, we've lost family, friends in Gaza. I mentioned earlier Vivian Silver. And for a lot of people in our team, in our community, they've lost people on both of those sides. We had artists whose relatives have been kidnapped by Hamas, and we don't have a choice really, living in Jerusalem day in, day out, but to figure something out. And really this creativity of the art and walking into a space where your senses are activated and you're able to just feel that those people that you knew yesterday before October 7th are still the people that you know, are still the people that you can talk to. Nothing has, a lot of things has changed, but they're there. They have showed up.
Yes.
And I think that's the incredible story. And I'll just say that since October 7th, we've had over 20,000 people from both sides in equal numbers. more than 200 artists. Half of them are Palestinian, half of them are Israelis. In the past, Palestinian artists would shy away from publicly allowing their names to be shown. Post-October 7th, there was none of that. There was like this conscious choice, this courageous statement of announcing themselves and showing up. And also we've hosted tons and tons. We have a 7,000 square foot space, and we've hosted tons of organizations that, you know, of whom I mentioned some. But that also contributed, being this house that was open for Palestinians and Israelis to meet, also strengthened us and strengthened those organizations, showed us that momentum that kept growing and only gave us strength.
Thank you. Now, I know we're getting close to the end of our time, unfortunately. Yes. It's gone very quickly. So, Peter, what gives you hope for the future?
Look, I just have to very quickly just point out, you saw in the video October 4th, where we had Women of Made to Peace, Women of the Sun together in a celebration of peace, and then October 7th happened, and you saw that in the video. On October 4th, we announced our plans for the next couple of years. And after a few weeks of war, we decided we are going to proceed with those plans, very similar to what Riman said. And one of the projects that was the most incredible experience for me post-October 7th was we decided that religion needs to be a tool for peace building, not a destructive force in our society. And we began both with Women Wage Peace in Israel and Women of the Sun in Palestine, a project where we brought together in the Israeli side, Israeli Christians, Muslims, Jews, and Druze. And we were fortunate that we had a large pool of candidates, so we were able to choose 25 women who came from all those streams and were believers. We called themselves Maminot, believers. In the Palestinian side, they were all Muslims, but they went through the same process of analyzing religion and looking at our religious values and how they are actually tools for peacemaking. We had 4 meetings, monthly meetings, Israelis and then Palestinians, and we had 5 meetings together. The Palestinians were unable to come into Israel, so we met in Bet Jala, which is an area inside Palestine, but it's accessible to Israelis. 5 times we brought together these 2 cohorts of women during a war when many of the Palestinians were losing their relatives in Gaza, when many of the Israelis were losing family members, where there were hostages, who everybody knows somebody who knows a hostage, where in all this horror that's going on around us, we met, we formed bonds, we gained understanding, we talked religion, and now I can get to answer your question, what gives me hope? My faith gives me hope. I am, as you will have guessed, I consider myself a religious and observant Jew, and I believe in the words of the prophets. I believe that peace will come, but I also believe, and this is my motto, I pray every day for peace. If it's worth praying for, it's worth working for. And I don't believe that peace is going to drop down from the heavens. I believe we have to work for it. We have to make it happen. My faith gives me hope, but watching my colleagues, Israelis and Palestinians, and seeing their strength, and even those who, it's very interesting, most of the Women Wage Peace women would not describe themselves as religious, but I see they have faith. They have faith that it can happen. Faith is hope. Faith is a belief that this will happen. And watching women who, despite their own circumstances, most women in Women Wage Peace have husbands or children in the army. This is people can't get this here, but that's the reality. Our son is going off to fight, and we're in the street demonstrating against the war. That's Israel. But I have hope I have faith, I have confidence, and I've met the incredible, brave partners that will do it with us.
And we've only got about 5 minutes left, I believe. So just quickly, I mean, a really important question here, Peter, would be what would you say to this audience about what positive contribution can they make to, you described the situation as horrific, what can a lot of our church members feel they want to be doing something, what is the constructive thing they could be doing?
I would say 3 things. The first one is spread the word that Israelis and Palestinians believe in peace, that there are peace activists there, that what you see in the media is distorted. We are not warmongering, we're not all evil, and we're not out to kill each other. We are people who have a vision and hope for our children. The second thing is actively you can support both our organisations and the other peace organisations in Israel. I've got an opportunity for you that's very specific. Take one of these, put it on, and when people ask you what it is, tell them, Women Wage Peace, Israel's largest peace organisation. Didn't you know it existed? 80,000 members, aiming for 4 million signatures on Our Mother's Cry. Wear it, be public. And the next time somebody tells you that Israelis and Palestinians hate each other or are killing each other, tell them, not all of them. We've met some who aren't. Be our spokespeople, please.
And Roman, what would you add to this audience here? What would you suggest to them is?
I mean, I share a lot of Peter's recommendations, and so I would reiterate, spreading the message that there are tons and tons of Israelis and Palestinians working towards peace, and also, like, I would ask that, it was incredible, like flying all that, all those miles across this continent. So being far away, I understand it's very difficult. If you're also part of either of the diaspora communities, whether you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, and you see all this horrible news that we have at home, and it's very easy to get angry, and it's legitimate to get angry, but it's important to remember in those times that we are there, and that we want to figure things out. We want a better future for our families, for our children, for the generations to come. And that we can't fuel the conflict. We can't support one side over the other, and that it's not particularly helping us to flatten sometimes or caricature like one side over the other, but rather let's search for that complexity, for that because it is very, very complex. The different layers of what we go through, of like checking, I mentioned in the video your moral compass at every minute, and but yeah, we are living it there, and it's not easy. So support us, imagine that future.
Yes, choosing either to support Israel or to support Palestine and saying you've got to do one over the other is not supporting peace. We want you to say, I'm not for Israel, I'm not for Palestine, or I am for Israel, I am for Palestine, I'm for peace. And that's what we need.
Thank you both. Now, for the members of Synod, there is actually, for Women Wage Peace, there is a flyer on the Mother's Call that Peter referred to on the front desk, if you're interested in reading that and seeing what that's about. There is also a sheet with a QR code if you want to make a donation to Phil Betts. You can also go to the Women Wage Peace site and make donations there. And you'll be aware, those of you who get gym resources, we have also provided you with details about other peace organisations that are made up of Palestinians and Israelis you could donate to. If you want to learn a little bit more about some other peace builders, we do have, we've especially got printed books that were put together, a joint Palestinian-Israeli initiative. So this is the stories of 21 women peace activists, Women Write Hope, and we have copies of that. So if you wish to purchase a copy, we can't give them away. We have those available for those who might be interested.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks,
Just before you go, Peter and Riman, sorry. You have shared with us some ways in which we have a better understanding of the complexities of peace. And perhaps applause is inappropriate of an expression of our deep appreciation of what you have shared. And so I'm wondering, Synod, if just for a moment we pause in silence and as a visible sign of us together, put our hands together as an expression of peace and offer you this moment as you go. Words escape us, and we perhaps are deeply appreciative of the complexities of what you have shared and the peace that we all hope for. Let us offer a moment of silence. Again, we appreciate deeply and thank you for offering us ways in which we can contribute to that, the peace that we hope for.
Thank you.
Thank you. We come now to our theological reflection, and I invite Reverend Tara Tautari to come forward. Yeah, come to the front, please. As she comes to the front, Tautari serves as the General Secretary of the Methodist Church of New Zealand. Te hahi wetena tara o Aotearoa, a position she has held since November 2020. She is notably the first Indigenous person and only the second woman to occupy this role in the Church's 2-century history. Reverend Tautari's extensive background encompasses education, community engagement, and international ecumenical work from 2001 to 2014. She was part of the World Council of Churches staff in Geneva, Switzerland, focusing on education and ecumenical formation. A committed ecumenist, Reverend Tautari is an at-large member of the World Methodist Council Steering Committee and Vice Moderator for the World Council of Churches Commission on World Mission and Evangelism. Her leadership within the Methodist Church of New Zealand is marked by a dedication to bicultural partnership, reflecting the principles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. In her role as General Secretary, Reverend Tautari has addressed significant issues, including representing the Church in response to the Royal Commission of Inquiry into Abuse in Care. Reverend Tautari's leadership continues to shape the Methodist Church's mission, emphasising inclusivity, justice, and the transformative love of God.
Thank you, Moderator. E te whānau a te karaiti, tēnā koutou katoa. Pilgrims of the Spirit, greetings in the name of the Triune God. Te matua tama me te wairua tama. I acknowledge this land and the Wiradjuri people, whose footsteps, stories, and care for country are woven into soil, water, and sky. I come as a traveller, setting foot here for the first time. I am Māori from Aotearoa, from the Ngāpuhi and Ngātihine tribes in the North Island of Aotearoa. And to stand upon this ground is to stand in the presence of memory deeper than my own. To breathe air that has already carried the prayers of countless generations. It is no small thing to be permitted even a glimpse of such sacred continuity. I tread lightly, knowing that what I see only hints at what is hidden, that what I hear is but an echo of what has been spoken before. Yet in this echo I sense the power of story, those carried in the land, those told by elders, those whispered by the Spirit. Story is how wisdom journeys across time, how memory becomes alive again, how people are bound together in belonging. And so in this moment I receive the gift of beginning to learn, to unfasten myself from certainty, to increase my understanding by listening, by dwelling for a while in the stories that do not belong to me, but may, in their telling, reshape me. For wisdom does not announce itself with trumpets. It lingers in the whenua, the land, in the waters, in the sky, waiting for those who come with open hands and patient hearts to discern its presence. It comes with the invitation at the beginning of our session. I think it was Adrian, inviting us to take a leaf and leaving me with the question, what is this leaf asking me to notice? I hold it in my hand and feel the veins that carry life, the texture that speaks of sun and rain, of soil. It is not only symbol, but substance, a reminder that my life too is bound to the cycle of earth. Creation is not a backdrop to our story, but a kinship we live within, touching us in ways as ordinary as the air we inhale, and as profound as a spirit moving in all things. Sisters and brothers, this day has unfolded thick and replete with imagery and resonance. We began by setting out upon the waters with a new helmsman, our moderator, entrusted with guiding our waka. In my language, our waka, a canoe, our boat. The boat of the Synod. The boat placed before us in worship this morning. That boat is more than just a symbol. It is a reminder that the church is never static, never bound to one shore. We are a vessel called to launch, to risk, and to trust the currents of the Spirit, who moves where she wills. This morning, as many hued fabrics were draped across the boat, we witnessed an act of covenant making. Each cloth a story, an ancestry a prayer. Layer upon layer, the boat became radiant. What was bare became adorned. What was plain, manifold. Here was a parable of the church. The people of God are not one thread, but many. Not uniform, but interwoven, carried together in a single vessel. We know it, we believe it, we affirm this with conviction, and yet the very strength of this conviction demands that we wrestle with its implications. For in the image of the wedding banquet, that image is not merely a soft metaphor. It is a prophetic mandate. It challenges us with the radical demands of covenant, a call to equity, to partnership, to hospitality that disrupts privilege and dismantles exclusion. As we were reminded, challenged by our sister, first and second peoples are summoned to be co-hosts at this table. Yet this is no mere gesture. To host together is to surrender control, to risk transformation through the presence of one another, to step into the vulnerability that covenant requires. The question presses us with urgency, echoing through the depths of our hearts. What does it truly demand of us? What will it cost us in privilege, in comfort, in control, to host together in the name of Christ? Likewise, the image of the campfire. Its flame draws each one close, giving warmth, light, and space for story. Around the fire, belonging emerges in the simple act of gathering. Healing is not imposed, but arises from the sharing. Kinship is not manufactured, but rediscovered. We are not called to a banquet dazzling in its abundance, but to a feast grounded in covenant. Not to a fire that consumes, but to one that gathers, sustains, and rekindles life. And so the question remains with us all, as first peoples and second peoples, woven together in God's covenant of love. How will we set the table? How will we tend the fire? So that all may truly find a place, a voice, and a home. And after the wonderful words and sharing of Peter and Riman, how do we talk and walk peace when all around us the rhetoric of war abounds? So I invite you to take another look at the boat as you enter into the meeting space. Our church boat does not only sail on calm waters. Already in Synod, we have heard proposals that stir a range of responses. Some welcomed with joy, others with resistance, and still others with uncertainty. Such is the nature of discernment. The path is rarely straight. Divergent voices are not necessarily signs of division. They may, in fact, be the Spirit's call to pause, to listen more deeply, and to seek wisdom beyond ourselves. For boats are not monuments. They rock, they creak, they sometimes take on water. They may even change course without warning. Yet they remain a means by which we journey toward futures we cannot see. They remain a means by which we journey toward futures we cannot see. What matters is not uniformity of thought, but faithfulness to one another, trust in one another, love with one another. What matters is that we remain together in the vessel, trusting that Christ is with us on the boat, stilling our fears, enlarging our courage, and calling us to keep moving toward the horizon of God's justice and peace, where all creation finds its home. I offer these few words as the reflection for this evening. Thank you, Mother.
Thank you, Sister. I'm going to invite my chaplain, Joan, to come into a time of prayer.
Peace be with you. Let's come into a time of prayer. I invite you to notice your feet on the earth, on the whenua beneath, and to become aware of your breath. the breath that flows in and out of your body, the Spirit breathing with us. And pay attention for a moment to what this day has been like for you. And invite the Spirit to draw your attention to a moment during the day of significance. Invite the Spirit of God to draw your attention to a moment of significance for you this day. And recall what occurred in that moment. Imagine yourself back there in that moment. And bring to mind the invitation that God has for you with this awareness. Loving God, source of life, enable us by your grace to live as your people. Bless us as we go into this night and prepare us to return together again in the morning. In the name of Christ, amen.
Thank you. And just before you leave, we're going to have some announcements. And so I'll hand it over to Sue to lead us through announcements before we leave.
Thank you, Moderator. A reminder that the Synod Standing Committee nominations close at 2 p.m. tomorrow, so have a chat on the way out tonight or make contact with people overnight to talk about that. Any changes to the Synod role that you're aware of, please talk to or email Sharon Hollis with those changes. That will help us. A reminder that tomorrow morning's session commences at 9 a.m. So if you need to make time for the coffee cart queue, make sure you get here early and please try to be seated by about 8:45 a.m. That will help us. Thank you, Moderator.
Thank you, Sue. So enjoy your night tonight and your rest, and we shall see you tomorrow. Thank you, Synod.